Welcome to the Return on Lifestyle podcast with Rey Descalso from Privada Wealth Management. In this podcast, we help you overcome financial worries and make sense of planning, investing, insurance, and banking. Join us for this journey as Rey draws from his expertise and interviews brilliant minds to help you enjoy life. The best is yet to come.
Hello and welcome to Return on Lifestyle with Rey Descalso from Privada Wealth Management. Today is part 3. We're talking about stability planning, and today's specific topic is income targeting. So we are on the third installment, and I am going to ask Rey to just give us a quick, brief refresher of what we covered in the first couple so we can catch everybody up to speed. Good morning, Rey. How are you?
Good morning. I am fantastic. If I was any better, they would call me Eric.
Oh, it's fantastic. I like that. Hey, okay, so can you give us a brief overview of what we covered in the first two for anybody who's just joining us or just a gentle reminder?
You bet. Episode 1, we went over the 4 factors. And the 4 factors is a new paradigm, or at least perhaps new to many of you, a new paradigm for how to look at and analyze your money and your investment choices and the bargaining you do as you trade in the 4 factors to get the very best result that you can get for your money. Mm-hmm. And then we covered rules-based investing. And we'll touch briefly on that again today, but the idea behind rules-based investing is to have indicators that help us to know whether we're going to be risk on, pressing on the gas, mm-hmm. or risk off, and maybe tapping the brakes a little bit when it comes to our risk management, when it comes to our investing.
Got it.
And so now the step 3, or the third installment, I guess we should say, is now called income targeting.
And I'll be 100% honest, I have never heard these words used in this phrase before. These 2 words together, income targeting. So you've piqued my interest. So where do we start?
Excellent. Well, usually you would start at the beginning, right? But actually, I'd like to say, no, we're not going to begin with the beginning. We're going to begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. My daughter, she's in K4, which is pre-kindergarten, and basically it's just a bunch of parties and painting and so forth. But the entire school year is based upon the 7 habits of highly effective people, which I think is really, really cool. Yeah. That they would theme it that way. And it's been great for me because she comes home and with little lessons, and it reminds me of the book that I picked up in college by Stephen Covey. And habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. And so income targeting is saying, all right, we're going to take a look at why we're doing all this. And I like to go back to the reminder of Mount Everest. And I think I tricked you. If you didn't listen to it, this is a spoiler alert. Go back to stability planning episode 1, because I talk about when you climb Mount Everest, what's the goal? And when I ask this to a person who has not met with me before or who has not heard this podcast, I say, what's the point of climbing Mount Everest? And everybody says, to get to the top.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of smile and they're proud of themselves. Yeah, I get everybody. I get myself sometimes. And the real idea is to get to the top and then to get back down alive. Mm-hmm. Well, when we talk about retirement, everybody who sits in that table across from me, or I sit in their living room when we talk about retirement, they all say that the biggest point of retirement is just to accumulate as much mounds of money as I possibly can. And then I have to say, that's definitely step 1. But step 2 is descending Mount Everest, which is creating an income. And so everybody starts with, okay, what's the best mutual fund? What's the best stock and bond mix and allocation and blah, blah, blah. And I just have to say, hold on, let's begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. And the end is unfortunately, Eric, you and me signing out, checking out, so to speak, and passing away. And so if that's the end, we want to get to that end with money in the bank, and we want to get there having lived that life that was full and meaningful. Yeah. And so how do you do that? Well, when it comes to retirement planning, the only outcome that matters is income, period. We can all say, oh, this is the rate of return that you can expect, based on this and that and so forth. But let's forget about the accumulations for just a minute. And let's talk about income. And why do we need income? Because we have expenses. Mm-hmm. And what I like to do is I like to take a look at expenses. And let's look at expenses. And there's 3 expenses. Let's cover 2 of them real quick. first of all, there's essential expenses. That's what you need. And for essential expenses, you can kind of think about that. So right now, I'm sitting here and I have the air condition running. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's going to be 85 degrees out here. And so I have the air condition set on 73 because, I get so excited about income targeting that I get kind of hot and sweaty. Right now, what would you say the temperature is for you outside?
Oh, right now, 4.
Okay, 4. Good. So 4 degrees, you're saying?
Yeah, 4 degrees.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. 4 degrees.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah,
And that's
fantastic.
with wind chill or without wind chill?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going out there, Ray. And
Okay.
all I know
I'll Google it for you later.
But thank you.
Both of us are being kept alive. Well, I'm being kept comfortable. You're being kept alive by sorry, I don't know why I pick on you so much. By utilities.
Yes,
all right. So our utilities are an essential expense. Now,
Correct.
I probably living here in Florida could sweat it out for 9 months out of the year, but truly it is an essential expense. Because,
very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just the reality. And essential expenses, not to be silly, they're the things like Maslow's bottom hierarchy of needs,
Mm-hmm.
The food, the water, the shelter,
Yes.
that kind of thing. But obviously we're not just animals in the forest who need a cave to live in. We're also, created in God's image. And so we're looking to rise up that hierarchy of needs and find fun and enjoyment and
social,
passion.
yeah.
Right. So the second layer of expenses are elective expenses, and those are the things that are what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you could talk about this being core is essential and discretionary is elective. But I like to say, look, what we want to do is we want to find out what our essential expenses are, and we want to match it and realize, okay, I have essential income needs.
Mm-hmm.
These income needs are non-negotiable. I got to have this coming in. And then, of course, we have elective expenses. And those elective expenses, they tend to be kind of, it's tough to predict. And also, too, if you look at studies, and we won't get you too into this, but our elective or our discretionary spending tends to happen like a barbell. We tend to retire at 60-something, let's say 65 for illustrative purposes. Mm-hmm. And that's when we do what? We travel. We visit the grandkids. We buy that Harley or that 57 Chevy and relive our teen years. Mm-hmm. Whatever it happens to be, the spending is pretty intense in the first 10 years of retirement. And then, of course, then we settle down and we get into a routine. Some would say rut, but let's just say it's a routine. Mm-hmm. And then, unfortunately, there's a big expenditure towards the end of your life. Why do you think that might be?
Well, I would say healthcare, if that's what you're. Yeah. I mean, healthcare's got to be the biggest one.
And by the way, folks who are listening on this podcast, I do not prompt him. I'm hoping he gets the answer wrong because it's so much more fun. But he's a smart guy. So you got the healthcare. So those are elective expenses. Now, of course, healthcare, is that really elective? Well, that's debatable. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. We break it down into essential and elective expenses, and then we look for essential income needs and elective income needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand the concept of those two. I don't know if there's any other categories that you would count in there, but let's just take those two specifically and look at how they apply to all the different things that happen in retirement. Because I spoke with somebody else just a few days ago, and they were talking about, what people's wants and desires are. And some people maybe they don't have children or they don't have grandchildren that they want to leave a lot of money to, and they really don't have any charities that they're necessarily thinking of supporting. So they don't want to die with a bunch of money. They're fine spending it all before they die. But here's the problem is that you just don't know when that's going to happen. So it's not like you can plan out, all right, I'm going to write my last check as I slide into home kind of thing. And it doesn't matter if it bounces. So taking those two categories, why is it so important to put everything in those?
Yeah, it's important. I'll tell you why. First of all, the more time you have until retirement, the more time we have to prepare. And the more time we have to prepare, the more granular we can get on essential expenses and really figure out for your lifestyle what are the non-negotiables and also what's elective. The less time we have, the reality of it is we just are going to be able to create the life. We're going to be able to paint the picture with the colors that we're given. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I meet folks who are, 45-year-olds and doing well, high income and that type of thing. And sometimes I meet folks who are 65 and they're like, you know what, Ray, I had a lot of fun and I took care of a lot of kids and I did a lot of things that were important to me. Now here's what I've got. What do we do? Yeah. In either case, let's take a look at your essential and your elective expenses and let's find out how we can create essential and elective income. And you actually alluded to it. There's actually three E's, if you will. And I love alliteration because it helps me remember things. So essential expenses, elective expenses, and then you talked about it, estate expenses, what you leave behind. Okay. And so those three expenses go really with three goals. And let me kind of unpack it a little bit more. So we'll go for the three L's now, the three L's of income. And there are three goals of income. Number one is longevity. And that's what you need and how long you need it. And this is something, again, you can just Google it. But at the end of the day, we have to prepare. When I talk to my father, for instance, who is in his 70s, he thinks to himself, hey, I got, 10 years left, right? And why? He's basing that upon his father and when his father passed away. And that sounds good. And there's obviously always going to be individual cases where there's health issues and so forth. But my grandfather died in a Japanese internment camp, so how do you use the previous generation? And also, too, that's very specific. In general, healthcare has just made leaps and bounds and does every 3 years. So if I base my life, I'm 45, if I base my lifespan upon my father's lifespan, it's tough. Longevity is a big issue. And as a financial planner, my worst case scenario for you as a client is you living 90, 100, 105. Okay. And that sounds terrible because you're thinking that's the best case scenario. But what we're concerned about is you running out of money for your essential expenses because you live so long. Yeah. All right. And then the other goal obviously is lifestyle. And that's where elective expenses, and that's what you want and when you want it. And that's kind of makes sense. And that's where people come to me and they say, well, what we'd really like to do is buy an RV. And so here's why. Lifestyle can change dramatically. You and I were talking before we pressed record about people say, well, I just want to play golf. I just want to play golf 24/7. Well, okay, maybe, 10, 5. Yeah. I want to play it a lot. And they get into retirement. And I cannot tell you how many, especially these men, they come back and, hey, how you been? It's been 3 months, been 6 months since we last talked. Yeah, I'm working again. Oh, really? Why is that? That's more fun than golf. And also, too, golf tends to be more fun when you're using it to escape work and so forth. So there's a little bit of sweet and a little bit of salty that you have to have. The point of my story is lifestyle and that discretionary spending, lots of variables. And then legacy. How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to slide into home plate, writing your last check? And so what we do is by categorizing these three L's and matching them with the three E's, we are able to have a conversation where we're all on the same page about all the different buckets, if you will, that your money needs to go into.
So what's the best answer? I mean, I know everything's individualized, and we talk about that a lot on these podcasts, but what truly does it do to change what you're investing in for these different type of expenses?
So when you talk to many advisors or you go online and you just take a look and see what's recommended for your risk tolerance, what you usually will get is a stock and bond pie chart, based upon how much income you say you need and your risk tolerance. But I think we need to have perhaps another way of looking at things. And so we do it by solving for it by retiring your risk. So what I mean by that is you take risk during your working life, okay? You choose a career and you save money, you put it away, you say, I'm not going to have fun because I'm going to delay my gratification, defer that expense, and so I have more money. And then you retire from your working life and the risks that you took to get there, especially if you're an entrepreneur or have been in your life. Now, what I'm saying is perhaps maybe we should retire some of the risk that you had in your life as you were accumulating wealth. And doesn't that make sense? So here's what I mean. When you have a portfolio and you're accumulating, the way you accumulate, the way you climb up that Mount Everest is you take what?
You take some risk. I mean,
you take risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you put your money in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and so forth. It goes up, but it can also go down. And the more risk you take, the more potential return you get. And that's all fun and games. It's the 80s, it's the 90s, it's the 2000s. And then all of a sudden, wow, how did I get this age? And now I got to look at it. I'm getting close to the tippy top. And it's important then to say, okay, I have used risk premium my whole life. This risk, being paid a premium for taking risk. And by the way, remember from episode 2, we recommend rules-based investing so that you are managing that risk premium as you accumulate in retirement. But then I want to talk to you about retiring your risk, and that's called risk pooling. So risk premium means you get paid for taking risk. Risk pooling means you get paid for retiring your risk. And risk pooling is creating an income. And what we want to do with that is create an income that covers your essential income. So you remember the essential, elective, and estate. We want to take a portion of your portfolio and say, what's essential? Let's retire that risk. Let's retire longevity risk by actually risk pooling. Now, risk pooling, what does that mean? What it means, and I don't want to get into it here now because it's a very specific thing that we would talk about with an individual, but we would talk to insurance companies about finding contracts with them where we say, hey, we're going to give you this money. And what we want you to do is we want you to create an income that will last us for a portion of our portfolio for the rest of our lives. Now, Mr. Insurance Company, what's the best that you can do? And what's the benefits? What's the risks? What am I giving up to do that?
I mean, Ray, it sounds to me like you're talking about a pension or Social Security, something that's basically guaranteed for the rest of your life. How do you do that?
That's exactly what I'm describing. I'm describing taking your money and creating for yourself a pension or something like Social Security where you have an income stream that is the risk of that income stream is not on you. It is on somebody else. With your pension, for instance, if you've got a pension, that's the federal government, perhaps if you're a federal employee and you're under the FERS system, FERS, you have that income coming in and the government's got to cough up the money. All of us who paid into Social Security are going to be on a pension system called Social Security. And by the way, let me just do a real quick aside. When I meet a client with a pension, I'm ecstatic because we can target those essential expenses already. That longevity risk, we can talk about it because they've already done the hard work of having a pension. And God bless them, they're kind of lucky in today's work environment. And everybody, you, me, everybody, if they're paying into Social Security through their working lives, has another pension called Social Security. And we need to maximize Social Security and pensions. And we'll do that on another podcast, Eric. I think you and I talked about it. Social Security maximization is a whole nother topic because we can make the most of Social Security, especially for married couples with age and income disparity, where one is older and where one makes more money. A lot of these tricks and tips have been taken away by Congress because we were doing such a great job of, wringing the system of money, but there are still reasons for us to sit down and talk about that. So in essence, what we want to talk about doing is we want to make sure that you're not putting all your eggs in the risk premium basket and you're not putting all your eggs in the risk pooling basket, but you're looking at what you've got and creating an income target that takes into effect all of the 3 E's, the 3 L's, and what you have already created through things like Social Security.
Yeah, Ray, a lot of the things that we talk about on this podcast or the things that you share, they're like all these pieces of a puzzle. And just like all the other things that we've spoken about, income targeting sounds pretty complicated, for individuals. I mean, is it really that complicated?
Yeah, I would like to sit here and say, I'd like to say, it's not complicated, but it's fun for me because it's complicated. And it's also very exciting because what happens, I have a brother-in-law, Stan, who I got to see up in Philadelphia the other weekend. And Stan decided that he wanted to try painting. And so he watched Bob Ross, I kid you not, Bob Ross.
Love Bob Ross.
And I saw on Facebook one day, he just started doing what Bob Ross told him, and he created this really great this landscape. And I have no skill on that at all. And I asked him about it, and he says, well, what happens is you take these basics and you start putting them together, and the sum is greater than the parts. And so painting that picture, looking at it, it overwhelms me to think, man, how did he do that? Bob Ross broke it down for him. And let's be honest, my brother-in-law Stan, he's just got a knack for it.
Yeah.
Well, the key is that income targeting and stability planning in general are just lots of different colors and lots of different techniques. And it's highly customized to the individual. One person has a pension, the other person doesn't. One person is a couple. You mentioned a case scenario where some people, look, right, we don't have a charity. We don't have family to leave this money behind. Mm-hmm. Completely different than somebody who's like, hey, I inherited this. I want it to go for 3 or 4 generations.
Yeah.
And so longevity risk, lifestyle needs, legacy goals, every single person who sits in front of me or calls me on the phone is a whole brand new landscape of retirement. And it's an art, it's a science. And when it's done and you got clarity, man, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds fun to me. I like puzzles. I like, do you ever do Sudoku puzzles?
I don't, but my mother-in-law does. I'm always afraid that I'll get stumped, and not feel smart about myself.
I look at this as kind of that, because there's all these boxes, right? There's all these boxes that you got to figure out what fits there. And I hear you every time we do these podcasts. That's what you seem to be the master of, right? I mean, you see all these boxes, these needs, whatever they are for each individual, and you say, okay, well, then if this is one of your needs, then we need to figure out what's going to fit best in that box that works with every other box that you have here. And so I just kind of picture that whenever we talk. I don't know, maybe that's just me, my mind wandering, but that's what I get. So I think it's fantastic, and I think that this is even though it's complicated, obviously it's worthwhile.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that you understand, too, that what you create is uniquely yours, and it's uniquely a thing of beauty that you can actually look forward to if you'll take that time. Yeah. And I want to make sure. But I also want to say one thing, and I should have been saying this at the end of every podcast, and that is a caveat. And that is, don't take any advice from me or this podcast. I don't know anything about you. Everything that we talk about, it has to be individualized.
Yeah.
And so take these ideas that you're learning here and take them to your advisor and say, let's discuss risk premium and risk pooling, and let's talk about Social Security maximization. And if you'd like a second opinion, go to the website and reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you as well, because at the end of the day, this is it. This is your one and only life, and we're trying to create a maximum return on your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have a few aches and pains in your life, in your finances, most people aren't just going to go to one doctor and that's the only solution, especially when it's really, really important. They're going to get a second opinion. So I would encourage anybody that's listening to this, if you have your own advisor, I'm not advocating that you change advisors and just say, man, my guy's not doing nothing. I want you to think about all the work that you guys have done together and look at the things that Rey is saying. Talk to your advisor about it. And if you're satisfied, great. If you have that question or there's just that little nagging thought in your head, give him a call, because very approachable and he knows what he's talking about. So I encourage everybody to do that. Thank you, Rey, for your time today. This was fantastic as usual.
Thank you, Eric.
You bet. And thank you all for listening to the Return on Lifestyle podcast with Rey Descalso. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Rey comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Privada Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Return on Lifestyle podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Hosted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Privada Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider for any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. The following program is sponsored by Privada Wealth Management, which is solely responsible for its content. Securities offered through J.W. Cole, financial member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice advisors are unaffiliated entities. The opinions expressed by Rey Descalso should not be construed as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. All economic and performance information is historical and not indicative of future results. Investing may involve the risk of loss of principal. Any tax advice on this show is not intended to be used by any person for the purpose of avoiding U.S. federal or state tax penalties that may be imposed on such person, and each listener should seek advice from their tax advisor or legal counsel on topics that arise from the show. Rey Descalso is not providing legal or tax advice. Nothing should be construed as solicitation of an offer to buy securities. The preceding program is sponsored by Privada Wealth Management, which is solely responsible for its content.